right, great. Sweet. Okay, guys, thanks for joining us on the podcast today. Today we've got Ben and Bailey. Daniel's and my right-hand guys. And I thought I'd start off the podcast by pointing out maybe an obvious fact, but it's something I had to learn, which is at some point in every entrepreneur's journey, they're going to need to hire key people to be successful. And Ben, I know you. I'm getting to know you more. Bailey, we know each other well. Excuse me. I know that you guys are those guys for each of our businesses. So we're really grateful to have you guys on today to talk about how we work together, to have a little bit of fun. And so let me, without further ado, introduce Bailey. Bailey, there's a lot of things I could say about Bailey, but firstly, Bailey is our farm manager. He's also become our resident electrician, plumber, cattleman. He's an avid hunter and fisherman. He's a father. He's a husband. He's a dear friend of mine. And he's a lot like the Morgan Wallen song, The Way I Talk, which I will now quote a portion of for our listening pleasure. I sound a little bit like my daddy. I don't cuss around my mama. Got some words you never heard, lest you come from down yonder. The man upstairs gets it, so I ain't trying to fix it. No, I can't hide it. I don't fight it, I just roll with it. Oh, kind of slow like the Mississippi rolls. It's the only way I know. Man, it ain't my fault. I just live the way I talk. So with that said, if you want to start a drinking game, anyone listening right now, and you have nothing planned for tomorrow, then take a drink every time Bailey says, yes, sir. And conversely, if you have things to do tomorrow and you want to get maybe a workout in, do 5 push-ups or 5 burpees every time Bailey says yes, sir. So fun little.
And you'll be in great shape by tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm gonna say you're gonna preface that by you're gonna be jacked by the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like Mr. Wallen said. I can't help it.
Yeah, that's right. It's the way I talk.
It's the way I talk.
Yeah. So Danny, do you want to introduce Ben?
Sure. Did you just call me Danny?
Danny.
Danny boy? I did. Sorry. I have a tickle in my throat and I'm about to cough really.
Get it out. Ben, thanks for being on.
Yeah.
Ben is, we were trying to, Buddy asked what your title was. we talked about it for a minute, but I think most appropriate, most apt right now is the general manager of the cafe. But you wear so many hats for the business. Ben is the general manager of the cafe. He's the pit boss. On bread days, you do a lot of accounting of many forms for the business. You manage the farmer's market. The list is long. You're a man of many talents. And as we were prepping for this, for both Bailey and you, it's like, not sure why he's still here, but so thankful that he is. So we are really grateful for both you guys. And we don't say it enough, do we, buddy? But you're critical to the endeavor, respective of our businesses. Amen. And we're so thankful for you. So we just want to give you all some time to chat, have a conversation, and to kick us off, could you describe where you're from and what brought you to Lexington? Both of you are transplants. Give us your backstory, Ben, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, sure. I'm from Potomac, Maryland, which is right outside of DC. I was born in Arlington, Virginia, so have some Virginia roots, but Northern Virginia, which you guys have talked about in the past. It's kind of a different state. But yeah, I grew up in a very well-off family in Maryland, and I had a great family, really loving parents, but just the undercurrent in the DC area is definitely one of like ambition and just like working hard to prove that you are somebody, I guess. So I got really caught up in that wave, especially in high school, just like trying to perform in every aspect, whether it was in school. I played ice hockey, so playing ice hockey, did musical theater, did all sorts of stuff. So I just sort of did everything and tried to do it all really well, just because I loved all those things, but mainly because I just wanted to sort of prove myself to the people that I grew up around. That sort of drove me to Wake Forest University, which is a great school. Loved my time there. And in college, I think I sort of moved to North Carolina. There's a different pace, got a little bit smaller, and sort of started to realize that there's a lot more to life than just trying to succeed, you know? You want to be successful, but you don't want to make that just your end all be all. There's a lot of things that are more important, like people. And in college, I got really involved with a campus ministry called RUF, and that's where I met my wife, Abby. That's where I met all of my best friends. And I think in that time, I got really convinced that like the only way to live like a fulfilled life as a Christian was to be a pastor. So I was like on pastor trajectory.
You shifted one trajectory to the other.
Yeah. So I went from, I'm going to go make a bunch of money in New York City when I got to college to, I'm going to be a pastor because that's how I can live like a fulfilled life. But I went about the pastor journey in the same way of like 5-year plan. Everything's got to work. So I ended up working for RUF. It's a campus ministry that I was involved in. And my wife worked for RUF as an intern. She was the year ahead of me in school. So she got placed at W&L, Washington and Lee, here in Lexington. And I was on the path of, okay, I'm going to do 2 years as the internship for RUF. Then RUF will pay for my seminary. I'll move to St. Louis and go to Covenant Seminary for 3 years. And then I'll become a campus minister and run an RUF and then eventually end up pastoring a local church. And I sort of had this whole big plan. And in my entire life, every big plan I'd had has always gone off the rails, you know? But got here to Lexington, and in our first year, it was in the middle of the pandemic, and we were working the same job, but we also couldn't really do our job. So we just spent a ton of time together at our house, walking around town, meeting students off campus because we weren't allowed on campus. But that first year was really hard doing ministry. And then the second year, when I was actually allowed to go on campuses and do everything, it was not something that was super fulfilling. I loved what I did. I loved RUF. But in that time, I was just like, I don't think I need to go to seminary. I don't think I want to be a pastor anymore. And the myth that you had to be a pastor to be a good Christian man was broken down slowly from underneath me. And I first met Daniel at church, and Abby worked at Bread Days. I never worked at Bread Days until they asked me to play music the first time that they did live music at one of their Bread Days. And I started playing music, and that was an absolute blast. And then moved from doing music to helping make pizzas to helping with the whole hog, the one whole hog that you did before. Now we do them all the time. But, and I remember the summer of 2021, I was just in the pizza pit, and I kept sort of joking with Daniel. So when are you going to hire me? When are you? And he would always be like, when are you done with RUF?
Yeah.
And Abby and I's plan was to take a year and stay in Lexington because we loved it, and to really think about, okay, do we actually want to move, go to seminary, go on that trajectory? And I was like, oh, I'll just work on a farm for a year. That's totally different than anything I'd ever thought about doing. And asked Daniel out to lunch, and we talked about what that might look like and shook hands at the end of like a 2-hour lunch. And I agreed to come on in June of 2022. And we talked throughout that spring about more details and everything. And then, started working on the farm, thinking maybe 1 or 2 years doing work with my hands. Maybe it'll be that sort of like,
Get that out of my system.
Yeah, get that out of my system. a lot of pastors dream about having like agricultural experience because there's so much of that in the Bible, you know? And I was like, still kind of in that mindset of like, oh, these will be awesome sermon illustrations. I was very much bought into.
That's great.
Even though I sort of veered off that plan, I was very much, I was still somehow on that plan because I didn't know how to get off of that plan. But then that summer working out there, it was just, I felt so fulfilled being in a place. And Abby and I had tons of conversations about how we value place more than career. That, yeah, I have an economics degree from Wake Forest, and I could go get an MBA and we could move to a city and I could work and make more money. But we just love this place and we love the people here. And yeah, we just sort of felt really rooted. And for a 23, 24-year-old, that was very different than most of my friends in college
that's powerful.
Who were out chasing career. And your career in your 20s, your career normally dictates where you live. And we decided to let the place where we live dictate what we do because we can find work here. So yeah, I mean, my job changed like 7 times that summer because 3 weeks in, the cafe idea came up, and then there was all the planning that went into that. And just like, it felt like I was was working for a tech startup, but it was a farm. It was so exciting and so many different moving pieces. And and just, I mean, here we are 2 years later.
Yeah.
And,
I remember when Daniel hired you, briefly talking, and maybe you can correct me here, Daniel, but I remember it being like, what's Ben gonna do? And you're like, I'm not even 100% sure. There's so many things that we're gonna figure it out. Like, we know he's gonna do these things, but is that right? I feel like that's kind of how it started.
The picture was incomplete, and also it felt more, when we hired you, it felt more like, it's not, we had this perfect job description, you were going to fill that perfectly. It was more like, Ben is such a catch. We can't let that opportunity pass, considering we hope to grow as a farm, as a business. And in retrospect, I mean, the Lord just had that worked out perfectly. Because, like you said, 3 weeks in, the opportunity for the cafe dropped. So you went from managing the farm, we're going to grow the farm, do more animals, do more of this, do veggies, to, okay, now I need you to run this cafe. And it was like a total 180. And I mean, we talked a lot about it, but you really you shifted gears and tackled it.
Yeah.
So really the Lord had orchestrated that better than we ever could have. But
yeah. And I mean, like Daniel, I'm a very amateur farmer.
Yeah.
I feel like we did vegetables and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And it was funny it's funny when people back home are still like, oh, you work on a farm? I'm like, yeah, I work for a farm. I run a cafe, which is way more of my skill set of running a small brick and mortar business in town rather than rotating cattle and things like that. So, even though I love doing all that, but yeah,
really cool.
It's awesome.
Bailey, you want to give us your side of the story?
Yeah. So I basically grew up in West Tennessee on the Mississippi River. I'm an Army brat. My dad joined the Army in 2001. He just retired 2 years ago now. And with that, as Daniel knows, you move around a lot. And so we moved to Clarksville, Tennessee, Eglin Air Force Base down in Florida. My dad was out in Colorado. And then we came to Virginia for my dad to work at VMI. And that's how you actually know my dad. Mm-hmm. We moved here in 2016 for him to work at VMI for a couple of years. And we moved the summer of 2016. So I was a sophomore, going to be a junior that fall. So I moved here in 2016, graduated high school here in 2018, and
man, I am old.
What year were you born, Bailey?
2000.
Year
2000.
Daniel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bailey's
What year
dad
were you?
is
I was
closer.
98. Wow. Yeah.
So this is what, and I don't mean
That
to interrupt,
checks
but
for Taylor.
Bailey's dad, we are closer in age, Daniel, to Bailey's dad than we are to Bailey. Like when you meet Bailey's dad, you're going to be like, oh crap.
Clifton Sanders.
Yeah, I am. I thought Bailey and I were like peers, and actually me and his dad are peers. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No. And so basically, I graduated high school having no idea what I wanted to do in my life, no idea where I wanted to go, what direction I wanted my life to go into. And so we have a local community college the next county over that has a forestry program. And honestly, I didn't know what that was. I was like, you know what, forestry, I'm outdoorsman. I see a correlation, I'll do something. So I go there, end up falling in love with forestry, everything, learning about trees, and getting my degree from there. And I graduated Dabney with my associate's degree in 2020. And so 2019 is where I met you. Mm-hmm. Just through the chain of word of mouth, you had told someone at your church that you needed some event staff, and that person
Little
told
farm
my
help.
Yep,
Yeah.
told my mother-in-law, and then mother-in-law told me. I was like, oh yeah, I'll make some little weekend money working weddings with Buddy. So I remember I had texted you I think it was Monday or Tuesday that week. Said, hey, I'm Bailey Sanders. Heard from so and so that you need some event help. I'm here if you need me. And you're like, great, there's an opening this Saturday. And so I remember showing up. I had never met you at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm dressed to work in a wedding. I'm like, all right, let's do it. And so I worked the wedding. Then we end up meeting the next week and talking all that. And then so that was in September 2019. We complete that wedding season. And like the last event I talked to you, I'm like, hey buddy, if you need any farm work or farm help, I'll be here. And you were actually deciding whether to re-roof the venue barn or not. And you're like,
yeah.
you know what? I could use you for that. So let's re-roof the barn. I'll have you help me with that. Then we'll see what happens after that.
how it goes. Because we hadn't worked on like a manual labor type project.
Yeah. As of up to that
weddings,
point, it was just weddings. I was just doing weddings. And so we start the roof project, the whole project in itself. We got it done. And so
No one was hurt.
no one was hurt, thankfully.
Re-roofing this massive barn.
And then the slope is like this big
Yeah.
on one side. But at that point, I was working part-time for you and like full-time at 7-Eleven. And I was going to Dabney for college. And so
And for a time, you worked at the paper mill, right?
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So for a
Bailey's,
time,
you got to give them your schedule before you worked at Big Spring. When you
Oh, my
were
goodness.
going to Dabney, you weren't married yet. You
Not
were
yet.
married. You were gonna get
I
married.
got married the summer 2020. So after
Okay,
I
yeah,
got
What day?
Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
July 6th.
Oh, we were July 11th.
Wow. Oh, no way.
That's awesome.
That's
Just a
awesome.
couple days apart.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes.
But yeah, your schedule when you were working at the paper mill, going to Dabney, and
Oh,
working at
man.
7-Eleven, you guys got to hear this. This is
So I was going to Dabney 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, like 8 a.m. to 4 to 5 p.m., depending on the classes that day. And then I would work 7-Eleven in the evenings. I would like talk to my boss, who's our manager. He was great scheduling. He would schedule me after that. And so I'd work a couple hours 7-Eleven after Dabney. And then this like short period job came up at the paper mill. They're like paying $30 an hour, 80 hours a week, offering time and a half night shifts. And at this point, kind of backtracking again, I had met my wife when I moved here in 2016. We started dating in high school. We had our first son, Braylon, May of 2019. So at this point,
you had Braylon at this point.
we
too.
had Braylon.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
He was
That's a key
No.
piece too.
He was Emma. This job started in March 2019. My son was born in May. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna get all this money to prep for this baby. And so I go to Dabney from 8 to 4 or 5. My night shift starts at 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And so when I leave Dabney, I go straight to the Dollar General, and because it's in Clifton Forge, there's nothing there really. There's like a little
Yeah,
small,
nothing but the paper mill.
nothing but
Yeah.
the paper mill and
In
Dollar
the
General.
Jackson River.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I'd go to the Dollar General, load my cooler up with Monster Energy drinks and Vienna sausages. That's how I got through my night. That was my supper for that period of time. And so I'd make it through the night,
You'd work from 6 p.m. to
6 a.m.
6 a.m.
12-hour shifts.
and then you would go sleep for.
Then I would leave the paper mill. It was a 5-minute drive from Dabney to school, and McDonald's was on the way. So I'd stop at McDonald's, get 2 breakfast burritos and a sweet tea, eat them before I get to Dabney, sleep for about hour and a half, hour in the car, go to class. And then with Ford, with the
It's like, so you slept for like an hour and a half every night? He's like, yeah.
yeah, it was intense.
He's got his dad's Ranger blood
That's
running.
right,
in him.
man. Oh my gosh. And you did that for like.
It was, so that started in March. I went up until, May 4th. I'm working my shift. It's like 3 a.m. My wife calls me, my fiance at the time calls me, says, hey, Braylon is coming. And so I'm like, all right, I'll be there in a jiff. And so the paper mill, like, you don't park at the paper mill. You park at a parking lot, and like your foreman comes pick you up in like the big white Ford Transit vans. You drive to the paper mill. So I'm like, all right, I got to call my foreman, get him out here, drive me to the car, and then I got to drive the 45 minutes to town at 3 a.m. after I just had class that day. And so call my foreman. He's like, all right, I'll be there. Then I end up, y'all have both driven down 64.
Yeah.
It's dead as is during the rush. And at 3 a.m., it's completely dead. So I think I was rolling probably about 98, 100 miles an hour the whole way. Just because it was...
Just to get there for your son's birthday.
I honestly didn't know what to expect. I was like, oh, no, he's like coming right now. And so I get there, and my wife, she's like, we ended up not going to the hospital till like 9 a.m. that day.
Oh, okay.
So I got there at 4. But had my son that day, and I missed 3 days of class and work, and I went back to work.
Wow.
I went back to class, and I went back to work in the paper mill, and still doing the 6 p.m., 6 a.m. It was crazy. But the funny thing is, I didn't really think that I wouldn't go home. I didn't think that I wouldn't be home for a couple days at a time. So the first couple days, I didn't bring clothes. So I went to Dollar General and bought underwear and socks from Dollar General. And I wore the same pants and shirt, just changed my underwear and socks until I would go home to eventually get clothes. Then I would pack a bag and I'd be prepped for falling.
Sleeping in your car and staying out in Clifton.
Yeah.
Oh,
but that was an intense period of life.
That's a great snapshot, though. Thank you for sharing that, because that gives you a great snapshot into like who Bailey is, his work ethic, and his priorities. You know, when he knew his son was coming, he was like, all right, I'll get an hour and a half of sleep a night. I'm going to get some extra money and be ready for this guy. I think of, I was telling you, Daniel, the conversation we had just to my side of around this time when you had finished getting your forestry degree. We had done the roof project together. We had started working together a little bit. And I'm thinking, like, you know, good for Bailey. He's finished college. Like, man, he's awesome, but I'm probably going to lose him to going to work for the, you know, U.S. Forest Department or whatever. And I remember telling you, like, hey, if you want to stay at Big Spring, like, this is the direction we're heading.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, he's probably not going to stay. And then you went home. I maybe took the weekend, talked with Emma, and came back and we're like, hey, we talked about it. And I was like, here it comes. And you're like, we're gonna stay at Big Spring. I'll make a go of it with you.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, let's do this. That was I'll never forget that.
At that same time, also like a push for me was COVID was just starting happening, and I was looking to go into the government, Department of Forestry, U.S. Forest Service. All that was shut down. All the jobs, hiring, everything was shut down. And I was
one of the many hidden blessings for me.
Exactly, because if I probably would have gone that route.
Yeah.
Just because, like, at that point, we had been together 3-4 months. Like, we didn't have that great of a relationship.
Right.
You know, we were still employee boss type relationship. Yeah. And so I was like, well, you know, I'm here already. He's wanting to give me a position. I'll do it. And here I am. What, 4.5 years later.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Time flies. It's crazy. It's been 4.5 years.
Yeah, buddy, what was that point for you? You said it earlier when you had to realize that growth came with hiring people to kind of fulfill where you wanted to take your business.
I think I just relearned that lesson over and over just because of my own hubris of thinking, like, I can do this. I can do this. And it's just like, you could, or you could find somebody who's better than you at doing this, or who has different skill sets than you. Like, I was just talking with one of our venue managers, Ashley Hamilton, and Ashley and I are so different. She's I don't know, 5'5". She's a short girl. We're opposites. I'm like, a dude. She's
Yes, good identification.
Just to be clear, she's so emotionally intelligent and picking up on all these things that I would just blow right past. And it was such a valuable meeting, and I'm grateful for her to be on the team. Just as an example of me relearning again, like, I need these key people, because I have my skill sets, I have my areas I know I need to grow in, and then there's other, God's given each of us, unique sets of just his gifts and reflections of him, that when we all come together behind a united goal in a business, it's really cool to see.
Yeah.
I had to learn that. I think, it's part of the growing in the business, and maybe just personal maturity too, but there's only so many dollars to go around early in the business. I mean, maybe now too. Like there's just there's not a ton.
There's always only so
but
many.
But think about hiring Ben comes at a cost to the business, to how we're going to do things, and then the moments of realization of like, this is so good, was one thing I think you do great. Is like, Fawn and I'll have an idea, or the cafe idea was the biggest one at the time, but having you be just as excited, if not more excited about the opportunity, and you like carrying our enthusiasm and then some. It was like, that is payment enough, or value enough to the business. But I think Fawn and I stuck in this, like, we have to make it work. We have to do this, and not giving credit to exponential multiplication of efforts when you hire the right people. And we relearned it with JoJo. We relearned it, with Alana. We keep relearning that. It's like, it's part and parcel to good, healthy growth, which is just awesome. So,
hitting on what you're talking about, buddy, I feel like from the outside looking in, I watched you like realize that you need more hands, because I've watched you and Jill bring 2 wonderful children into your life in my time being here. So when I started working here, it was just Knox Monroe.
Right. Now we're up to 4.
Now you're up to 4. And so as your family's growing, your time is getting more stretched thin. So I've watched you like understand that you're not as flexible as you used to be.
This is true.
And so like from the outside looking in, it's like, I can see that also.
Yeah.
Great. Something I'm curious about is for you all just to describe kind of the breadth of your roles. We don't need to talk about like temperature that pulled pork is done at, but hey, let's talk scope of your roles, what you love doing in your current position. Where do you see the business going? And then this is a multi-part question, but with y'all's skill set, you could be doing a number of things, and what keeps you with Big Spring, or what keeps you with Seasons Yield. But we can volley, and that's kind of interest to me as we chit chat.
You want to go?
I'll go ahead. Yeah. So my general role here is my official title is farm manager, but that's like way broader than the actual term is.
Come up with something to just call Bailey.
You had to write something down.
The more the joke is, like, if there's a problem, it's like, Bailey!
Yeah. And so
we need you.
What Buddy has said really sums it up. So looking at it from the outside, I landscape the wedding venue, keep that pretty, mulch, mow, weed eat. Then the farming side, I'm the one on the grounds most of the time, moving the cows, moving the chickens, feeding everything, checking on them, all that. And then whatever projects come up, Buddy and I are right next to each other. He's over here working, I'm over here working. You have some lodging properties that constantly need maintenance or just upkeep on, or we're building something new onto the lodging that I'm working on. Also just odd stuff comes up now, like, hey, we have to go to Maryland to go buy a tractor.
Yeah.
And so next thing you know, we're going
funtivities.
4 hours north and getting the tractor. So, which I think with that being said, that's what really like makes me happy about my job and keeps me staying here, is because I come in the morning, I'm like, all right, I have to move the cows here, and then next thing I know, I have to go do this. Like, it's polar opposites, and it's never the same thing. And I love just the diversity of what I do. And so with working with you, buddy, I put it lightly, I love it. Just because like I really appreciate that you listen to me and you ask for my feedback, and we bounce ideas off each other, and like you come up with something, I'll be like, well, what have you thought about this? And then you'll do the same for me. And so with that, I really appreciate that I'm heard and I'm not just an employee on the paper. And like you said earlier, we've really created a great friendship. So, and like another big thing with you is like if Braylon, my son, has the first day of school, I'm always there. I'm always there for his middle of the day Christmas performance that's next Tuesday, you know? Like you understand family and appreciate family.
I have to tell Bailey, like, Bailey, we're ending early. You have to go because he's such a worker. I'm like, dude.
And yeah, you
and
keep me in
you're
check
good
that
at
way.
making requests like, hey, it's the first day of school. Hey, it's Christmas. Yeah.
And so I really appreciate that, and I value that. And like
Christmas play. Of course, you have office for Christmas. Gosh, I don't want that to be misconstrued.
Yeah. And so, well, like, especially this year, as you know, we've had a really big transition year this year.
Yeah.
And so, in general, we've just switched gears in many ways. And I think we switched gears for the better, just because seeing where we're going is
You're talking
amazing.
business-wise, not
Business-wise.
family-wise.
Yeah, business-wise now. The way the Big Spring is growing it's growing fast and hard. And so you and I, we're just constantly running, keeping up with that. And like this winter, for people that don't know at the venue, the winters are downtime just because there's
Which basically just means project time.
project time.
Hustle to get things done and make it all beautiful before the first wedding or event in next
Exactly.
year.
And so with that, it's just, like I said, you're moving like crazy, crazy fast in a positive direction. And so we're just doing what we can to keep up. And like I said, I just like being here.
Yeah.
For that reason.
We love having you. It's so much fun. I want to sing Bailey's praises, but I was going to save that for the end. So maybe Ben should go next.
Praise
Yeah, I mean, working here at Seasons Yield it's ambitious. I feel like there was a WNL student. I feel like Daniel always makes me do the interviews now with WNL students.
Did you have one yesterday?
For their projects. So I'll be at the cafe.
Wait, like somebody interviewing Seasons
about
Yield?
the business. So I'm like the voice of the business to the school of WNL.
Could you please meet them?
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And she asked me to describe the business in 3 words, which was, I think, one of the best interview questions I've had. And I'm trying to remember my exact 3 words, but I know that caring and ambitious were 2 of them. And that's probably the main reason that I'm still here, because sometimes the 5 a.m. wake up for the cafe is it's not as early as the bakers, but it can hurt, especially if you're doing 4 or 5, or one week I had to do 6 straight days at the cafe. Those later on in the week days where you're waking up and you're doing the same thing again, it can get a little bit monotonous. But like working for you, Daniel, it's just like I feel so cared for and important to the business. I feel like my voice is heard. I feel like my ideas are respected and run with. I feel like when I say no, you respect it. Sometimes you'll still go, but at least it's like with the hay bales and everything. just to bring back
Wait,
that
I
old
thought you
trip.
said I could do it.
I did. I said you couldn't charge people for it. Because it's not part of the it's not part of the mission. I love working for a business with a mission. We're not after a good bottom line. We're after nourishing the community. And I think when you work for a business with a mission, everything you do can be checked against that mission. And it's like a very good diagnostic tool to say, hey, is raising these prices because our rent went up at the cafe, is that still with the mission? It's like, yeah, we could probably charge $6 for a croissant and people would still buy them and we'd make more money. But then how could this woman who only comes in after 1 p.m. when they're half off afford as many pastries as she's buying when they're half off? So even with like slight price increases with inflation, or how do we price out our pulled pork, which is expensive to make and time consuming to make? How do we,
And oh, so good.
and how do we do that where it's doable for the customer and they feel like they're getting a deal? Like I love, like that's like a nourishing thing about being in a business where you are taking people's money and giving them something, and you want to give them the best thing. Like if I go in the back and someone bought a morning bun and it's a very wimpy morning bun, I will give them 20% off on the morning bun. So there's just like, yeah, that care and that mission is really big for me. But then also my normal week is I'm at the cafe 2 to 4 times, and then I'm at the farm 1 to 3 times. And that shifts a lot with when we're in the middle of barbecue season. That's when I'm at the farm the most. But farm days are so exciting because I have no clue what I'm doing when I wake up in the morning and I check my little list and I'm like, all right, today I'm moving 300 pounds of pumpkins and a cord of wood and I'm cleaning out a freezer that went south and I'm fixing a like rolling rack in the bakery, or it's, hey, today I'm driving to Galax, Virginia and picking up a big thing for feed for the pigs, or today I'm loading up pigs. And I've gotten a lot better at that. The first time we loaded a pig, Daniel literally had to drag it by the tail into the
Loading pigs is a mixed bag, I can tell you. We've loaded a lot of pigs.
And we have no infrastructure for loading livestock at the farm.
Yeah,
there's no chutes or anything, but by the end of the season, it was just like, all right, if I need to take a pig up to Harrisonburg for a kill and scald, I can get there and load it myself. And I feel like there's a lot of really tangible things about working for the business that I can see my tangible improvement. And I think compared to anything else I could be doing, there's not a job right now where I think I'd have as much responsibility at 25 years old. There's not a job where I could tangibly see results of, hey, that latte was a lot better than the one I made 3 weeks ago. Hey, this, like, I can load a pig, I can back up a trailer way better than I could at the beginning of my job. I can do all these things that are tangible skills. I can build a picnic table that took me 8 hours the first time, and then it took me 8 hours to build 5 the second time I made them. Like, there's just little things like that where I'm doing things, I'm working with my hands and being able to tangibly measure what I'm doing and accomplishing in a day is really fulfilling for me. And then the ambition, and that's like the caring side of the business. They care about you, but the ambitious side is just like working for you, and you're just like, should we buy this in? And I'm like, whoa, like, oh, I'm going to run the numbers. No, we shouldn't buy this in. It's a money pit. Or how do we add more? How do we do better? Should we expand hours? Should we cut back on this? Should we, like, just, there's so much ambition and growth and excitement. It feels like we're about to explode. And it's just being able to work for a small business that's very entrepreneurial is exciting, because especially when you get into it early and you feel like you are part of, you feel indispensable, and you feel like you're part of the potential growth, and that it feels like it's not mine, but I've said this to you, it's not my business, but it feels like my business in a lot of ways. And just the excitement of where it could go keeps you on the hook on those slower days. of like, okay, we're just building up for something that's a lot cooler and a lot bigger that might come down the line from here. Yeah, I don't.
Can I share
think-
one thing on that real quick? I had to learn. I've learned a lot of lessons through Ben at your expense, I think, unfortunately. But when you first told me that, as far as I think, Fawn and I had made a decision, or you had heard from somebody else about something big that had happened. I can't remember what it was. I think it had to do with finances, and you said, I would really appreciate knowing that before someone else did. I can't remember the exact situation, but we hadn't been in open communication. And I think that's when I first realized, like, oh, yeah, we're not the only entrepreneurs in this environment. Like, Ben has just as much a vested interest in the direction of the business or the details of the business as Fawn and I do, and that was eye-opening. Like, okay, I need to include Ben in these X, Y, and Z things. And then also that's also empowering because now we have just that much more energy and creativity going into the future. But I had to learn that. And I was embarrassed, I think, at the time, like, oh yeah, probably should. And I've done that more than once, but that's like a growing thing that I've experienced. Yeah. Can you give everybody a snapshot of the barbecue piece? Because I feel like, after you did that first whole hog, I jumped to the conclusion that you were going to open your own barbecue joint. Because I remember I said, like, are you wanting to do this like full time? Like, kind of concerned that Ben was going to do shit. Like, this barbecue is so good. But can you give people a snapshot of that part of your job?
That's like it feels like a side hustle, even though it's within the same business, which is really exciting. Cause it's really mine. It feels like I'm the guy who can do the barbecue the way that we do it. And I would feel,
you can't hand it off to somebody.
Yeah, I'd feel confident that I could like train someone to do it and they could do it for like a weekend. But the system we have is, it's like it's my little business within the business. And it came off of the story of the barbecue is last fall, about 12 months ago, I guess, Daniel and I were talking while we were driving up to Marcus's to pick up some cattle or to get a trailer fixed or something like that.
Excuse me.
We were in the car and he had told me, hey, come up with ideas for how the farm can make money. Because at that time, I was not as into the cafe and I wanted to be more on the farm. But I recognized that my work at the cafe is a lot more beneficial to the business than it's bringing more money into the business than my work at the farm. And I sort of ran through a bunch of numbers and realized before I had even started was the last time we had done a whole hog. And I ran some very crude numbers on how much I thought it might cost to raise a pig, how much money we brought in on that bread day on pork sales. For a pig that was good, but nothing special. And I basically ran the numbers and told Daniel, I was like, hey, this is what we got to do. We got to have a lot of pigs. We have to alternate pigs and pizza. We need to run with this idea and be a pig farm that does barbecue and raises the pigs on the property. I think that's a really cool thing where you come to the property and you see the pigs up the hill and then people ask, oh, where'd you get this pig? Oh, right up there. It would turn off a few people, but more people are like more pulled in and drawn into that. They like the connection there. And told Daniel, and like he normally is with new ideas, is great. Let's do it. How do we do it? And then Daniel and Fawn went to Austin, Texas, and we had already come up with the plan. I'm going to put in a whole new fence. I'm going to build out new structures. We're going to really get the pig area ready for all the pigs we're going to do next year. And he came back from Austin and was like, I want to send you to barbecue school. Like, I want to send you somewhere to learn how to really do this because I want it to be the best barbecue we can possibly do, which was nothing I would ever dream of. And I got to go to South Georgia in March. My only ever business trip was like the greatest business trip ever.
It's hard to top.
To barbecue school?
Yeah, you get down to this guy's little house in Unadilla, Georgia, and there's 20 people. Most of them are in their 50s and 60s, and they just are barbecue nuts. And then there's me, who's 25 and doesn't know. I like to do stuff on my Weber at home, but I don't know anything about it. And we cooked so much barbecue. We did a whole hog. We did hams, shoulders, pork belly, turkey, chicken, smoked sausage. Like, we did everything you could possibly do. And we learned all the methods. We prepped the meat. We cased the sausage. We fired the pit. The pit that we have is it's a wood-fired pit. So you are burning your own wood down into coals and shoveling those coals underneath the meat in the pit. And it's a very old school
You're like
way.
making your own charcoal, basically.
It's a very old school, no technology way of barbecue. And the guy I learned from, is like a world champion barbecue guy who has won all of his championships on these smokers that he has designed. But the technology in these things is insane. They cost $25,000. They're insane. And
What's the technology? Because the coals, it's like,
yeah, well, this is for his like state of the art competition stuff that goes on the big trailer rig that they drive around the country, and it's this like H2O fusion whatever technology that he has patented, where it's like the water. It basically makes barbecue really hands on in the meat prep and really hands off during the cook. So it's
but you still go with the super hands-on approach.
He's still teaching this old school way.
He's still teaching this old school way because he says it himself. This is real barbecue. It's not going to be this. Every pig is different. Every single pig was raised differently, ate differently, and you can't reproduce a pig over the pit because the coals might be a little cooler, it might be a little hotter.
Temperature is different outside.
Temperature outside. The wood's a little bit more green, a little bit more seasoned.
There's a real art to it, I imagine. That's cool.
Yeah, and like the way you check the pit for temperature is you put your hand on top, and if you can count to 10, you need to put more coals on.
Whoa.
And if you can't, then it's hot enough. And it's just like very old school.
But you came back from that trip on a Sunday,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or a
on
Monday?
Sunday. Yeah. It was a
And
Sunday,
then on Tuesday, I remember that first week we started.
Yeah, so I came back and I was like, okay, like we can do it over the cinder block pit that we have. This is another one of the countless things where Daniel takes my less ambitious ideas and he goes, no, like let's go all the way. And we started that Thursday laying brick, and we have laid this pit. We laid all the brick for this pit ourselves.
Thousands of
bricks, 2 pits where you can fit 2 whole hogs, or you can do hogs and chickens or whatever. And when we were laying it at first, you're just like, whoa, these bricks are very wobbly.
and
We were
rolling.
very amateur at this. But that's like the best part, I think, when you come to the farm and you see this pit that is 10 months old and it looks like it's been there for 75 years. It's a very, very not on purpose, like rustic feel to this pit.
Yeah.
And Marcus welded us this awesome chimney.
I was going to say, shout out to Marcus, because that's another great, you guys.
It has the logo
we're doing
on
this.
it.
Yeah, we're
and
doing this to
just
the max.
When we got to our first cook in March, I was so taken aback with how much the business had like put its trust into me to like produce, how much money the business had spent and how much effort Daniel and Hinckley and like those boys, how much effort people had put into getting us ready in 2 weeks for this first cook. And we sold out of pork in an hour and a half, and we were like, "Oh my gosh! Like we need
This thing has legs,
Like
baby."
we need, and we just have started to run with it. And
I love that you built the pit and everything before you have to, right?
Yeah.
Before even like, you didn't test it on the cinder block pit. You're like,
no, we didn't. Yeah, we
building
didn't test anything. I mean, the first pig was the one we sold.
Yeah, the first pig was the one that was for sale with the sauce that we had never made and the like
we're going all
the
in.
rub that we had never produced. And
That's
And
a
then-
great trait Daniel has. Like when we talked about starting the podcast, I'm thinking as bare bones as we can to start it. And Daniel was like, I love the idea of doing a podcast. If we're going to do it, we need a nice room to do it in. So we refinished this part of the basement. We need like the best legit mics. And I'm like, you know what? All right, I'm with you. I'm on board.
And that's kind of, it's another draw to stay at Seasons Yield is like when we are all in, we are all in, and there's not a lot of holding back. And if it fails, great, we'll learn from it and then go all in on this other trajectory. And planting vegetables in the high tunnel when I was only at the farm 3 times a week, fail.
Yeah.
But like we're gonna run in a different direction. So like we've had lots of failure, but we've also had lots of success. And I think the willingness to just dive into something rather than dip your toe in is exciting, and it doesn't exist in as many larger scale businesses where a lot of my friends from college are working, where they are 7 people down the totem pole and they have no idea what the business's mission is and what it's going after. And they just sort of do their task and then get back to their life, and then do their task and get back to their life. And there's so much meaning and purpose in being in a business that what's going on. And I think you really can only get that working in a small entrepreneurial business. You can't really get it in a larger scale company.
Yeah, I think that's a cool piece to highlight, which is like for anybody listening who's thinking about starting a business, you could have this idea that I've got to go out on my own and just come up with my whole own idea and start the business. And that's possible for sure. But there's also the option that you guys have taken, which is get in a small growing business, because there's so much room to stretch those entrepreneurial legs in the right businesses. Like I think Bailey's and my version of the barbecue is the custom grazing thing that we're doing, and we did 60 steers this year, and we're going to do 250 next year, you know? So like we're hitting the gas on it. We did a little, we didn't build the pit right away. We thought we'd do a test group to make sure it was
some wisdom to that. I think.
Yeah. And then we're hitting the gas, but no, still hats off to you guys. But yeah, I think that's a very viable option for anybody who's like, oh, I would love to maybe they have a job and they like, I'd love to do something entrepreneurially, like start working a Saturday somewhere and at a small business and maybe you'll find your place there and go full time and run with all this stuff.
And you're able to jump off the deep end, but realistically for yourself, it is just dipping a toe. Like you don't have to try to do this on just your time off. You can jump if you're in a business where the owner is all about your ideas, you can jump in the deep end with the security of we're selling bread and pastries. And there's a main enterprise, and you don't have to come up with a main enterprise. You just have to come up with a profitable enterprise. And there's so many things that you can do that are profitable in this world that cannot stand alone as their own business. And if you're under the umbrella of a small business where you're given ownership over something like that, you can add value to that business, and you're given way more resources because you're coming off of a main enterprise. Like you guys are able to do the custom grazing thing because the main enterprise is the venue and the events. And you're given this power you're given a runway and power to build the pit, to do all this stuff, and to realize I'm not putting my life savings into this. I don't need to produce 200,000 laying hens to make money. I can just make enough eggs so that it pays itself off and makes a little bit of money, but we're not living off of that. But we're still doing this thing.
Yeah, you get room for that entrepreneurial itch to be scratched.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
That's good.
Well, yeah, I think a key piece to what we're talking about is from Daniel's and my perspective. People say to me all the time that friends that own businesses, like, gosh, how did you find Bailey? I need a guy like that. I need somebody who'll run with me after this goal we're going for. I think a key piece to that I've had to learn over and over again, but that we've really found, I think, a healthy trajectory on, is as the business owner, like inviting you in to real decisions and the balance of like giving you the freedom to run with something, and just supporting you in it. And I think that is like for an entrepreneur that's just easy to say, but it can feel much harder when you remember the days when it was just you. And for me, it's my own racket I make up to justify myself as the guy that can get things done. But when it was just me and I got everything done on my own and I can do all this stuff, the entrepreneur can often end up in a place like that, and it can be like a white knuckle where you're not willing to release control of something to somebody. But man, when you find the right person as an entrepreneur to trust different parts of the business with, it's way better than white knuckling it. And I think that I would love to hear your take on how you've been able to do that, because it's not like a switch you flip. It's something you're constantly learning and growing in, I think, as the head of the business. So yeah, I think for Bailey and I, that's been one of the things I love. Like an example of this, just a real world example for Bailey and I is like, there's a bunch of different things, but just an example would be electrical stuff. We're in the podcast room here. There's lights in the ceiling. There's new switches. There's like 2 4-way switches. It's pretty confusing actually to wire it all. Bailey, correct me if I'm wrong, knew very little about electrical work before you started working.
To be honest, nothing.
Yeah, Bailey
nothing about
knew.
electrical. I didn't even know there's 3 wires in Romex.
Okay, yeah. So, but Bailey, so when Bailey, maybe a year into working here at the farm, we bought a house. Me and my brother bought a house just a mile from where we're sitting, and it was an old farmhouse that we completely gutted and redid. That's now a short-term rental, and I taught Bailey while we were there, hey, this is how you wire a light switch. This is how you wire a GFI, and was able to teach him like, hey, here's one room. Now I need you to go do the next room. And Bailey will listen and get it and run with it. And I can trust him to do so. Bailey wired. I always joke now, if I need wiring done, like here in the basement, I didn't wire any of these lights. Bailey did all of it because I can trust him. Hey, Bailey, I need you to put canless lights in the ceiling. He's like, okay, show me where you want them on center. Boom, he can do it. I can trust him.
Right. And it would have taken you 3 times as long as it took Bailey, just the way
Bailey's better at it than me now. And I'm the one who showed him how to do it. I love that. That's like, I used to feel like, I don't know if I need to do this, Yeah. Now I can just trust you. And it's in my house. If you messed it up too bad, it could be a real problem.
Yeah. I feel like with that, like with something like that, like with the Midland project, you show me like the basics, and me, I feel I want to try to get it perfect and do better than I was taught. So in situations like that, YouTube has been my best friend.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And so like when
YouTube University,
I was like, how to wire a 4-way switch.
Yes.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And so
you're a great learner. Yeah. So that's a small example, I would say, but there's a million like that with Bailey and I, where our relationship works because of that mutual trust. But Daniel, what's your take as, the entrepreneur it was just you and Fawn in the trenches, and now you've got this whole team of folks with you.
Yeah. Again, I think we learned on Ben. I think you're unique, and I think we have a lot of employees that are excited, but it feels like you're all in. And you told me that. You said, I'm all in. And the first time was when you used we, referencing we, the business, or we, you, Fawn, and I. And that was the first time. And that caught me off guard. Like, no, we means Fawn and I. That's the business. And then this realization of, oh, Ben sees himself as a we, as a Fawn, he and I. Like, and my first controlling response was, no. It's we, and then you have good ideas. Yeah. But that was my first response. That was the knee jerk, like Ranger, Milter, Alpha. Like, no, this is mine. And then the more thoughtful, empowering, like learning was like, oh no, that is invaluable to what we want in an employee, in a team member, in
the we
the
mindset.
Trajectory where we're going. To have someone say we, that just means vested interest. And then when we spoke to this, you're like, no, I'm all in. And I remember telling that to Fawn, and she's like, wait, he said he's all in, like he's in this, like he wants it. It's like, yes, he's all in. And not that you can't go somewhere
Yeah,
else, but just
yeah.
this idea that for where we're at, where we're going, to have that sort of, the vested interest in the mission, in the vision with the business, that we has turned from like, I have this defensive mechanism up to like, oh, that's coveted, and not every employee that we have has that. And we'd want them to, but not everybody has that. And so we have become increasingly thankful, and that I'm waxing eloquent, but as people have left, as employees have left, it's added even more value to Ben, saying, no, I'm here. This is it. We're doing this. We are doing this. It's like, okay, this is that. I covet that now, but it has taken
it
maybe
takes
a year and a
time.
half or 2 years.
You're not just going to find a right-hand man who is there from the day he starts or she starts.
Yeah, it's a relationship you build.
It's a willingness to trust any employee and give them the runway to create and think and feel like they have a voice and are heard and their ideas are respected, and that draws someone in. But then there's sort of a moment where you realize that you can trust a person, and when you realize that you can trust that person, then that's the moment of like, okay, like here are the keys, like it's vulnerable to let someone like me or like Bailey into what we have been let into, because like I remember the specific moment where I think we had these conversations before, but you had asked me to see how profitable we were as a business. And I was like, Daniel, I need to see the books.
The passwords, baby.
I need
like
everything. The
now
bank accounts.
I truly, on my like business email, Google, if I go to Square, Daniel's bank account, the restaurant, Cisco,
because you
whatever,
run all the books for Seasons Yield now, right?
It's all all his login information with saved passwords on my computer. Like I could take all of your money, but I'm not going. I'm not going to. But like, there's a real.
Daniel's like, I have a very specific set of skills.
I'm not taking his money. But there's just there's a specific. There's like a real trust that you need to build before you can have what everyone is saying. Like, oh, I just need a Bailey. It's like if you find the right person who, I think, if you learn well, like I think the greatest skill in life is learning how to learn. Like that's what you're going to college for. You're not going to college to get an econ degree. For me, it's like you're learning how to learn things. So you find someone who can learn and who's quick, then give them a chance and slowly give them more and more. And then there's going to be a moment where you can actually make that sort of partnership connection. But it's so much of it is built on trust. And that's why it's so hard to find. And like, I trust you. And I feel you trust me. And that's why it works. If there's any hint of doubt about it, it falls apart because you start to question, or you start to sort of take the control back if there's any hint of doubt. And
I think the piece of needing or acknowledging that it's a relationship to be built, not somebody that you find. And that's why it's fun to joke about when my friends are like, gosh, we need a Bailey. I'm like, there's only one,
Yeah.
Well, really, it's like something they can build with just with the roadmap you gave there, Ben. I think that's really well said. Because it's something that when I think back to even when I first met Bailey, going back to how much older I am than Bailey. You were a young man.
I was 19 years old.
I was going to say, you weren't even
college.
21. Yeah. And it's been really cool to watch you go from being a young man into, even though I am older, I feel like a peer of mine and truly somebody, I can deeply respect. And, not just respect as, hey, this is a good guy, but no, I know you well. And there's that, like you said, Ben, that mutual trust. So it's something you both grow into.
Well, I feel also like for Ben and I, like you and Daniel have to be a certain type of person to make us want to stay and like make us want to trust you and want us to want to build y'all's businesses with you,
Right.
And so it's like not all on us; it's y'all as well that's made us want to stay, made us want to be a part of y'all's like lives,
Amen.
you know.
Yeah.
And so that's I talked about earlier, like my trust with you and my relationship with you is fairly strong, I feel.
Yeah.
And so outside of
Yeah.
just a employer-employee relationship. And so I really trust and admire what you and I have, and I'm sure Daniel and Ben has
Yeah.
from just talking here.
Yeah, there's friendship too.
Yes.
Which is, yeah, you trust your friends.
Yeah.
You know, the business relationship starts to feel less and less like a business relationship the more that, and I think that's another thing, small business, like you're not going to get that.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that in a big LLC. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's something that I guess as the two businesses grow, like how do you stay small as you get
Yeah.
bigger? That's a huge question.
Preserve that core.
How do you,
Yeah.
and not just make it like a core and then everyone else feels like all the other people, like how do you continue to be friends with every employee?
Yeah.
Like the friendship aspect has such a draw because everybody wants to feel known and feel loved. And if you can find that in a workplace, you're going to stick around because you hear so many people who are, I mean, like if you're like 60% satisfied with your job, you're on like, you have a great job apparently,
Whoa.
you know?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little higher than that, but most people don't like almost half of what they do. And I don't like 10% of what I do, but I love who I'm working with and for. So that 10% is fine, you know?
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. I think this is Bailey and I have never talked at length about what works so well about our working relationship and friendship.
Yeah.
So this has been so good for me just to process with you guys. You're both really articulate. So it's been good. Daniel, do you want to go to lightning round questions?
Yes, and it's only fitting that you would start us.
I will start us. As is tradition, my questions are very simple. Daniel's are more deep. So at least that's usually how this goes down.
Maybe
so
not today.
We will start with the classic question of what is everyone's preferred footwear on the farm or
Farm or cafe? It's different
let's
for me.
hear both for you,
Okay.
Ben, and Bailey on the farm. I want to hear because you've gone so many different
Oh yes,
ways.
I've been testing my footwear for the past 4 years.
Yeah, any boot company out there, Bailey is a prime test subject for your
Oh,
boot.
man.
So
Yeah.
You want me?
Go ahead.
All right, I'll start. When I started on the farm, I had a pair of old Timberland boots that were super cool from when I was in high school.
nice, like
You
the
know?
tan Timberlands.
Tan Timberlands,
Unlaced.
unlaced, flopping over. I wear
Yeah.
them in fraternity basements in college, like just like a very, very not farmy pair
Yeah.
of boots.
Yeah, that's great.
They were a little too small too, and then I remember texting Daniel and being like, "I need a pair of boots," and he sent me the link for Thorogoods, which is what you wear, and I bought them, and they've been killer on the farm. I do everything in them. I have a pair of muck boots, but I feel like when it comes to getting in the pig pit, I just wear my like they're nasty, they're gross, but they have stood up to every task that I've done in them. You know, you can kick a flaming log while you're doing a burn pile. You can step on a nail and it doesn't go all the way. Like they're just really solid. And then preferred footwear at the cafe is seasonal, but in the summer, in the warmer months, I will wear Birkenstock clogs, the leather on top. If you spill burning hot water from the espresso machine on your foot, it's not going to burn you. The foot pad is really solid for standing on all day long. And yeah, it feels like you're wearing a Croc, but you're don't have the holes in there for the food and
you're
everything to
slightly
get through.
dressed up. 'Cause
Exactly.
it's
I think they
suede
look
or leather or
super,
whatever.
super dorky, but they are like a preferred shoe in the food service realm, I believe. And then I love these Blundstones for the colder months at the cafe. They're a little bit, they're really comfortable and they slip on, which is nice in the morning when you only have 6 minutes to get ready. You don't want to lace up the full boots that have pig poop on them.
Yeah.
So I love these boots as well.
All right, Bailey.
So my boots, like my go-tos, my style is I like your typical slip-on cowboy style boot. Because I grew up, grandparents have horses. I've always been like sort of a modern cowboy.
Modern cowboy. Love
And
it.
so I've always had boots. When I first started working with you, I had a pair of heavy Ariats I hated. And so my dad just had some army boots laying around. I wore those. They were great for summer, horrible for the winter. And so I bought a cheap pair of, I think they're just Walmart brand, just leather boots. Tore through those in a couple weeks. And then you bought me a pair of mucks. And that was like my introduction to muck.
That was your introduction to like, hey, you got to get some legit footwear. We
Yeah.
got to get you some muck boots.
And so I was like, all right, these mucks are great. But for me, maybe TMI, I have very sweaty feet. So in the summer, mucks were not ideal for me.
Yeah.
Or at least like the ones I had, I think they're insulated. And so I've had a couple pairs of Ariats. They always ripped on the seam going up the leg. Found that. I've had a pair of...
I got you a pair of Tacovas.
A pair of Tacovas.
But you destroyed the sole because they're
Yes.
leather stacked heel.
Yeah.
And Bailey's, he's going to kick stuff.
Well, like Ben said, like I kick a burning log with
Yeah.
my boot.
Yeah.
Like I just jump in the corral with the cows with my boots out, changing my boots. So I'm
Yeah.
rough on boots. And then there was a phase where Walmart was having a sale on boots. They were like $10 a pair. I'm like, you know what? If they last me a month, it's worth this $10. So I went
Bailey
like
went through so many boots.
I went like 3 or 6 months. Those 3 pairs were plumb gone. And then I bought another pair of Ariats. Those ripped up the side. I really like Ariat for some reason, but like out
keep going
my
back.
nice boots.
Yeah, he keeps going back.
My nice boots are Ariats like that I have at home and I don't mess up. But work boots are not good. Hate to say it. Love Ariat, but so right now I'm actually rocking a pair of Twisted X Steel Toe Works boots, which have proven to be very durable. They're waterproof. They're steel toe, which is a little heavy walking through the pasture, but they are holding up. So far, I think these have lasted me 5 months, and I think that's the longest a pair of boots have lasted me so far.
Wow.
So
Alright.
right now I'm rocking with the Twisted X.
Twisted
But
X.
you also always have to have the muck boots in the back of the truck.
Great.
Love
Wink,
it.
wink, hint, hint, muck.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. We talked about this idea of farm camp,
Yeah.
this possibility. Now this is lightning round. We can't get into it in
Okay.
depth. But if you had an idea that you think could be implemented well at farm camp here at Big Spring or at Seasons Yield, what would that idea be? Catering to either an adult audience or a young adult
Yeah.
kiddo audience.
I went to farm camp growing up at our friend's farm in Poolsville, Maryland, called Rocklands Farm. That'd be a great podcast guest as a plug.
I need to write him
But
down again.
they were in high school and they ran a farm camp to just make some money in the summer. And the best activity that is seared into my memory is they let a pasture on the farm grow up to like 4 feet tall grass. And then it was just like that the whole week. And on the final day of farm camp, they took the mower and they mowed an awesome maze through the pasture. And
Daniel's his ears just perked when you said maze.
they did not use hay.
He's like, what? A maze? I can build another maze?
They mowed this awesome maze that was 4 feet tall, and all of us are in elementary school, so you can't see over the grass. And they gave us all little squirt guns and a bunch of cardboard, and we built these suits of armor, and we ran through the maze having a water fight. And Greg, who owns the farm, it's his family's farm, but he runs it and operates it. Greg was like 17 and he stayed up all night and he created this terrifying cardboard suit of armor that was like shin pads, breastplate, helmet with huge horns on it, like everything. And he was not there for while we were all creating our little piece of cardboard that you cut armholes in and duct tape together. And he walked out of the barn and it was terrifying. And he had a huge super soaker. And we were just running through the maze we thought we were going to fight each other. It ended up we were all against Greg. But Greg was 6 feet tall, so he could see all of us in the maze. And you'd be running through the maze, and you'd see above the grass these horns on the helmet. And you'd be like, oh, I got to get to him. But there was this huge... In my mind, it was like 10 acres. It was probably a tiny little field.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
That would be awesome.
great
If you
idea.
dedicated a pasture that would have been like used for hay,
Right.
you just let it go and then mow a bush hog a maze through it would be awesome.
I love that idea.
I love that. Sounds like a maze done right.
Bailey, any thoughts?
Well, see, I'm I think it'd be real cool to be like super transparent about the behind the scenes. Like if we had a viewing of a castration of bull cows. Like how
For the
amazing.
children?
Well, you got.
I mean, I know we
gotta
take my
expose
kids.
it
We take my
somehow.
kids
You gotta
to it.
learn, I suppose.
Oh my god!
Well, and then you can also like typically we throw them
You
out.
are
but
such a rip right now.
But we can include the
In the menu?
in the menu.
Bull testicles.
Yes.
We'll throw them on the pit. We'll throw 'em on
Exactly.
the pit. We'll smoke them.
Bailey, my idea man over
Wow.
here. That is
Like, 'cause
interesting.
I know you all talked about the community dinner at the end, like seeing the fruits of your labor on the table. Like how amazing!
Just a little sous vide
Yeah.
bull testicle,
Like-
Rocky Mountain
God.
oyster.
Yeah,
no,
like
he's-
in our crowd, we could build like kind of a raised platform so they can look down at what we're doing. Like I'll be standing here holding the bull calf, and like they're right here.
I
like,
will
right
say,
above us.
all of my kids, except for our infant Sunday, but someday she'll join us, have been to castration day. They do enjoy it. They are fascinated by this.
And I will say,
But
it's-
I don't know, Bailey. I'm still on the fence about that.
well, like we're gonna have to put it. We're
Farm
gonna have to put in a disclaimer somewhere in like the original application.
Yeah,
like,
you're signing. You're
Just
signing.
FYI, you're signing away to see this, which is not as gruesome as it seems, but like we're also ripping the body part off of an animal.
Yeah, that we'll table that. That's a good one.
That's my
Like
thoughts
we
on that.
said, taking everybody's ideas is really important.
It
here on the
is
farm.
very important to us. Okay, this is I think an interesting one, given how, as we've said several times, just how talented you guys are. What is something you could see yourself doing if you weren't at Seasons Yield Bennett or if you weren't at Big Spring, Bailey?
So my initial goal coming out of college, while working with like the first little bit of working with you, was I always want to be a game warden. That was my like, I'm gonna get out of the college, I'm gonna go to the academy, be a game warden. It's gonna be amazing. I'm outside all day, and so I would 100%, if I wasn't here, that's what I would be doing.
Giving
no
people
question
tickets.
about
Yeah, writing people tickets.
that. All day.
Bailey would be with his aviators.
Yeah.
Hey,
Ma'am, do you have your life jacket on in that canoe?
see, I was thinking I'd probably like shoot to be like in the Bay Area or like somewhere on the water or like by Smith Mountain Lake.
Oh, in a boat.
How awesome would that be?
That would be awesome.
She's like driving around on
Chasing
a boat
people
all
down in a
day.
boat.
Like, oh, you ain't got a life jacket? Here's you a ticket.
Where's your fire extinguisher,
I'm
bub?
gonna go drive my boat. You know, that's just I'm being at like I said earlier. Like I just love being outside and all that, and so which that ties back into being here at Big Spring. Like I'm literally outside all day.
Yeah, this is
Like,
the longest you've been inside.
I know, like this is a rare chance that I'm inside, and so it's
And Antsy over there.
Yeah.
well, and like my forest, like I feel like I still use my forestry skills all day. Like
Yes.
we're about to plant 200 pine trees over here to grow and eventually one day cut for lumber and pulpwood and then replant. You know, like I'm using my skills here as well. Like with the forest management we have over at Highland, we're doing stuff, and so I feel fulfilled in that cup. And also mainly just being outside all day.
We need to figure out a way you could write people tickets at Big Spring.
Hey,
That's what I'm hearing you say.
you did just put up the speed limit signs over at
I
Highland.
did put a speed limit sign up on one part of the farm. Bailey could be in the Polaris. We just need to get you one of those lights. You
Yeah.
can put
Yeah,
on
the volunteer fire
little
department.
can light that you throw
Yeah.
onto the top.
Oh, that's awesome.
But
How
yeah,
about you, Ben?
Gosh, I don't know. I think before I was on, I mean, I guess I talked about it earlier, like being a pastor, but I don't think that's for me. I think there's a lot of ways to do ministry in what I'm doing right now. If I wasn't married coming out of college, I would have 100% bought a van and been a touring musician. I would have gone all over the country and seen the country and seen Canada and Mexico and all these places and just live out of a van and play guitar, piano, banjo, and bars. And I don't think I would ever want to be a famous musician. My dream musician gig would be like Drew Holcomb's pianist or Jack Johnson's piano, like big stage things, but no one knows who you are. You can walk through the airport. You can have a life where you're not recognized, but you get to put on these big shows. I would love to be a background, like part of a really awesome band, but not the main guy. So I could see myself doing that, striking out on my own and playing music, but that's definitely not a very place-based thing, you know? So I'm doing something very different than that. I realized quickly in college that I did not want to do finance or private equity or accounting or something where I'm going to be in a big office in a big city and fight traffic and
all the
of
things
that
you got
stuff.
your degree for.
Yeah, but I mean, I will say I pivoted on that my freshman year when I decided to declare econ instead of going to the business school at Wake, because I had a conversation with a professor who said, look, if you don't know what you want to do, econ's the best because you can do whatever you want. He's like, the only people who are like you doing just econ are professors, but it's going to help you in whatever. And I think like what you were saying with your forestry, at first I was doing zero things I learned in college. And now working in a business where I'm doing the books and doing cash flow sheets and doing profit and loss. And it's not just the accounting part of it. I'm not just producing it and giving it to somebody. I'm producing it and then diagnosing where
Analyzing.
can we get better. And that's economics to
That's
me.
huge.
What
Yeah.
is a thing that what's the demand and how can we supply that demand? Do we want to keep things scarce? So my econ brain is actually churning a lot.
Love it.
More than I would have thought when I started working for Seasons Yield.
Love it. Dan, you got another one?
I feel like we're at a good stopping point, and I really want Ben to pick up the banjo.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have anything before we close?
I had one. We might cut this out.
Okay.
But I thought it would just be interesting to hear, Ben,
Yeah.
your best impression of Daniel, and Bailey, your best impression of me, because I figure you must have a decent quirk or ism that we use or
Oh
something.
gosh. Really? Wow. What? Like I don't know.
Extremely
Just excited,
excited.
like, whoa. Yes. Really? I don't know. That's sort of. Yeah. That's
awesome.
very good.
That's awesome.
I think for Buddy, it'd be like, we'd be meeting, you'd be like, all right, so I had this idea. So we're going to do this huge extravagant thing in this short amount of time. And we're going to get it done. I'm like,
Okay.
well, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I was noticing you barely said yes,
it
sir,
once.
this whole
Said it
time.
once. I was thinking about that
Very
halfway through.
relaxed over there.
Yeah, Bailey, what the heck?
Oh, me. But yeah, that'd be like, all right, guys, this is what we're going to do.
All right. This was a great conversation. Thank you all for coming. And on behalf of Buddy, and I thank you for everything you contribute and your vested enthusiasm for the business.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
we couldn't do without you. So, as a fitting tribute to our place-based business, Ben's gonna jam us out with an original.
Yeah, I wrote this song. It's very much a song about living in a place rather than chasing other things. So. Shenandoah Valley of Virginia is not where I'm from. That would be in the expanse of suburbia. Now I can see the mountains from my front porch. What a sight to behold. And the sunsets never fail me. They could never get old. I have a feeling I wasn't born in the place where I belong. It's this feeling, Shenandoah. That's why I now call you home. Whether it's climbing up these old Blue Ridge mountains or floating down the river or just laying in my backyard, man, I love Virginia. I have a feeling I wasn't born in the place where I belong. It's this feeling, Shenandoah, that's why I now call you home. Got this feeling, I'm now living in the place where I belong. It's this feeling, Shenandoah, that's why I now call you home.